and welcome to Viewpoints, Dominion DMS's video podcast series where we highlight our vendor partners. I'm Sharon Kitzman, president of Dominion DMS, and today we have Austin Talley. He's the founder and CEO of Everyware. Austin, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me, Sharon. I'm very excited to be here, and I've heard a few of these podcasts, so it's great that you actually are doing these. I think they're very insightful, and especially with whether new partnerships or vendors. So thanks again for having me.
Absolutely. I've been having fun doing them, and I've been learning a lot along the way as well. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your company, Everyware?
Yeah, no, thank you. So the company itself was founded back in 2015, really based on an idea that I was building out for hotels and resorts. So if you ever stay like at a Hilton Resorts, you get a text message, and that text message there was meant really to help solve customer service problems, upsell you, and do it from a centralized location using real phone numbers. And with a cool name like Ivy as a bot, not even knowing it was a bot, people thought it was a human. But it solved a lot of problems and generated a lot of incremental revenue. And I felt like this could apply everywhere, kind of hence the name. And so in 2015, I sold that company and went all in on Everyware. And it was right place, right time when the pandemic hit. It became not necessarily a convenient payment solution, but a contactless payment solution. Right. And so the company was moved to Austin, Texas from South Florida. And out of Austin, it was just a place that was just prime for just great fintechs and technology itself. Centrally located, easy to get to different places when you need to be, and just an exciting town altogether.
And it's keep Austin weird, right? Isn't that
keep Austin weird? And I found out recently that it was actually a typo that actually the mayor of the city actually put out. Keep Austin wired, and there was a typo in there, and it came out weird in the publication. When everyone loved it, they just went along with it.
They're like, that's what we meant. That's what we meant,
right? We didn't mean wired, because he was trying to attract tech companies there, so he felt like, oh, he was wired, and now they got a bunch of weirdos.
That's great. I've never heard that story. I've been to Austin several times, but I've never heard that explanation. So now I know. Thank you.
Yeah, I learned it too.
So we're a little over halfway through 2023. How's business been for you and Everywhere in the automotive space so far?
Yeah, it's been a phenomenal space to really get educated and learn in. For me personally, coming from, call it the travel and hospitality, there's always that concierge mindset. And looking at auto, especially in times where, there's not a lot of necessarily supply. In other words, like might be buying vehicles from thousands of miles away. So there's a lot of text communication. And the great thing about it is you're seeing conversations happen on everyone's own time. In other words, if it's the sales guy doesn't respond to you in 30 minutes or less, socially it's acceptable with a text message. It's not like a live chat. Right. And then also cutting down on the amount of fraud that we used to see in auto, whereas you accept, $3,000 or $4,000 deposits over the phone on somebody's credit card, sales guys high five, and only to find out it becomes a fraud like chargeback. Right. So, it's exciting to see our software and really applying to a lot of these use cases that in auto used to be a big problem. So we're excited that, we're learning more and more educated about how to service the auto industry, but ultimately it's just great to see our product and how it's really helping solve some of these problems that have daunted that industry for quite some time.
Yeah, I've had that happen to me before, where they'll ask for my information over the phone, and I'm thinking to myself, where are you writing it down? I know you're writing it down somewhere before you enter it.
He's on an e-commerce website already shopping, buying his wife a purse.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'd like to say that you're the only text payment processor in the auto space, but unfortunately, we all have competitors. So is there something unique about Everywhere other than your background in hospitality that you bring to the game for dealers?
Yeah, I think really the two things that are really different that we offer. One is that we leverage what's called a network token. So a network token is basically a token that's used today for Apple Pay and like Google Pay transactions. We use it ourselves, and what it does, it really cuts down the cost of interchange. So in other words, a card not present transaction, you pay usually a lot more for versus somebody that's like face to face. So
Right.
being able to, lower interchange and give a face-to-face rate, I think it's really powerful and different than what's being offered out there. And then the other one is immediately when we have a cell phone number, we know the history of who this phone actually belongs to. We know even the current car they drive. We know if they have a criminal past. And we simply just had their phone number. Now we get their name, we get their card information, we're able to basically validate the identity of the individual.
Okay.
Again,
Okay.
helping reduce fraud and mitigate risk and do it in like
Right.
0 seconds. So I think identity tied into not just taking like somebody's cell phone number that maybe is a Google line or just not really a cell phone number, but like a VoIP line. Now we have the ability to actually know who this person is and whether or not we want to, receive a $5,000 payment from them when their phone number comes back with no data, right? Because we've
Right.
all had our cell phone numbers for like thousands of years now.
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, it's like, not to say my age or anything, but I feel like it's probably been about 30 years I've had the same number.
Yeah, I'm about 7 area codes ago, as far as where I've moved over the course of the time that I've had the original number. So you're right, it does kind of travel with you, versus a lot of things that you maybe leave behind. So as a DMS provider, I have competition as well. And when I think about the number of solutions that a dealer has to have in order to really just effectively run their business, everything from something that maintains and runs all their transaction and data like a DMS to something very, very innovative and cool like Everywhere and everything in between. There's a lot of data passing back and forth securely, of course, but there's a lot going on. Is there anything that Dominion DMS can do for companies like yours, Austin, that allow us to drive more efficiency into the process for dealers?
Yeah, no, and that's a great point, because a lot of times you have potentially a disconnect between the core system, right, being the DMS, and all these different payment systems that are out there today. And the last thing you want to do is just be in a reconciliation nightmare for your customer when it gets to accounting, right? So being able to know exactly when the money hits, I think is key. So for us, being able to establish like those webhooks to know like, hey, like a transaction has happened and in real time, you're getting that data back into your DMS system to apply to your customers downstream that need to reconcile and know like exactly when that money hit, right? So being able to, again, have the flexibility and be nimble to support webhooks and then update your system in real time versus end of the day or batch. And especially since like you're seeing programs like the Fed now where money moves real time. So that means that that dealer potentially just got money instantaneously, right? And if you didn't have that webhook in place, you'd be notifying them hours later when they already know that that money is there. So I think it's going to go a long way by having that type of data getting back to your system as real time as possible.
Yeah, and boy, what a game changer for dealers who used to have more of a 3 or a 5 day cycle time, right? Depending on the type of transaction. Yeah, amazing.
Exactly.
So as a really good example of our ever evolving industry, I guess it's not industry specific, it's more financial industry specific, but our industry is constantly evolving as well. You mentioned earlier, lack of inventory or inventory shortage. It feels like we've been dealing with that for a long time, but just over the course of the last couple of years, boy, dealers have been hit with one thing after another. And it always feels like, at least on the nightly news, we're still hearing about what the Fed's going to do, or possible recession, or a new, situation in Europe that we have to deal with. As you and your team get together and strategize about how to continue to penetrate everywhere into the automotive space, I'm sure you also talk about strategy and what you could do to either continue to save dealers money, or maybe get some upside out of the transactions themselves. So anything you'd like to share with us about things that might be coming in the future?
Yeah, really a couple of cool things. One is that we noticed that with dealerships that their goal is to get them back into the dealership for their very first oil change. So being able to collect money, say that deposit or that vehicle at the time that they make this purchase, and they really start the clock to know that this individual receives this car, and the same text message that collected money from them is now getting them back to that dealership for the very first oil change, right? So it's looking at marketing strategies and how that can apply to a payment transaction. And then also just being able to survey that customer immediately to understand why, or perhaps they had a great experience or not so great experience, and learn very quickly. And it is the simple text message on a scale of 1 to 5, the rate your experience could be more advanced, where you collect, a lot more data points from them. But ultimately, applying marketing, applying customer service. So if there's an issue or concern, giving them the ability to accept a two-way text message, again, to help avoid problems that escalate into bigger problems, to avoid somebody like don't have time to call in to try to get a hold of someone. So having that now, not just a short code or one way, but a two-way, it's going to really go a long way. And then applying that to other areas in auto, such as in the body shops and what have you, whether it's applying it to the bay occupancy time. In other words, like your car goes up, you get a text message notification, right? The car comes down, it's ready now. For your convenience, you can pay now, right? Or there's a text message that goes out for changes or recommendations based on assessments that were made after the car was up. Right. So looking at other ways that we can tie in, where we can leverage the same phone number to collect money fast, but also solve problems fast, and include that in, as well as, into the auto and other areas of the dealership where it can make an impact.
Yeah, the remarketing idea is a great one. I mean, those short codes, they all go into my unknown, right? And I go clear them out once a week or what have you, and don't even look at them on a regular basis. But if you can get the long code and the consumer can see that they've already replied to the long code once or multiple times, I think that's a game changer. You also mentioned the process and the cycle time and keeping the consumer informed. The car goes up, car comes down, notifying them, and then the payment. I had my car in the shop a couple of months ago, and living here in South Florida, as it's doing right now, it's getting ready to have the typical afternoon storm. And I got a message that it was being put through the car wash. And meanwhile, it's pouring outside. And I'm like, no, just give me it back. Like, I just want to leave.
Right.
So maybe even consumer transactions where the consumer gets to pick what the next step of the process is would be beneficial to client satisfaction as well as operational efficiency in the dealership.
Absolutely.
That's
And
really
I would
cool
say that
idea.
the other one that's pretty cool that we've rolling out is we talked about identity payments. In other words, knowing the identity of that cell phone number. But it's also dealing with somebody that is face to face to make sure that that ID, that verification that they gave to you, is actually real. So I know that's also a big issue, to make sure that fake IDs are not being used to purchase vehicles, especially in the used car market. So we have a process that'll send you a text message. It'll ask you for your ID, which could be a passport or government ID, and then also take a picture of your face. And we'll simply just come back with yes or no.
Validated yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
think anytime you can help dealers out with compliance is good, because it's definitely not something they want to think about on a daily basis. They just want it to be taken care of.
Exactly.
Well, that's awesome. And it sounds like you've got a wonderful business, a great background, and some real great traction in the automotive space already. Austin, if dealers listening to this today wanted to learn more about Everywhere and the solutions that you have to provide, what's the best way to get a hold of you or your team?
Yeah, me directly. It's just Austin at everywhere.com, and
Mhm.
everywhere spelled like software, WARE. So EVERYWARE.com. And again, my name being Austin at everywhere.com, easy to get a hold of. Happy to answer any questions personally. And if I can't, definitely pull my team in when necessary. But ultimately, you can find out more about how we are applying this technology to auto from our website or online by Googling us.
Awesome. And if you're a Dominion DMS customer and want to take advantage of the partnership between Dominion and Everywhere, just head to the dominiondms.com website and click on our partners page. You can either search on Everywhere or follow the alphabetical order to the E's. Austin, it's great to visit with you and learn about your business, but we are here living and breathing auto every day. So do you have an interesting automotive story, maybe a favorite car story you'd like to share with us?
I probably have too many car stories, but I'll definitely tell you a bad car story experience, which was my first car that I had was a Volkswagen Rabbit 1981. Where the speakers cost more than the vehicle. Right. And I had I didn't take care of my axle. So actually, in living upstate New York, I actually had the axle break off with the tire, only to roll all the way down the hill through Main Street, through a shopping store window. And man, that was like my first car. It was like a month in. And again, because I thought I would spend more money on the stereo system than the vehicle. My lesson.
Well, there's probably many people that are the same age you were at that time that would have done the same thing. But
oh yeah, I was like
it's a good life lesson anyway.
Oh yeah.
Well,
thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for being with us today. Thanks for joining us. I know you're on the road and we appreciate it. And I know our dealers will appreciate learning more about your solutions as well.
Oh, awesome, Sharon. Thank you so much.